Welcome back to the Travel Coach Network podcast. It is I, Sahara Rose DeVore, the founder of the Travel Coach Network and the creator and instructor of the Travel Coach Certification Program. Today, I'm so excited to swap podcasts and have Christine Winebrenner Irick join us today. Hi, Christine.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So Christine, just give a little bit of a background. She is the founder of Lotus Sojourns and the host of the Soul of Travel podcast. Christine creates and guides transformational journeys for her travel company, Lotus Sojourns. She's dedicated to creating space for women to authentically connect around the world. Christine wants women to embrace their purpose and know themselves as valuable and equal members of this global community. Again, welcome, Christine. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tell us first, Christine, where did your passion for travel stem from?
I think it started really early on with just something inside of me that knew there was something greater than me in the world. It was really like this little soulful yearning, I think, as a young child. And I also was just really curious about other cultures. I really remember being young and asking my mom why we didn't have any culture where I lived. And I grew up in a really rural community in Montana, and we certainly had culture, but I think I just understood that there was more diversity and languages and all these things that were greater than what I was being exposed to. And so I just think I had an innate curiosity about the world.
Yeah, and I know a couple of your first trips that inspired you with choosing the lotus as the symbol for your brand and your business. Can you explain some of those stories? I know you mentioned about Thailand as well.
Yeah, when I kind of took my big first trip, like personal growth discovery trip, was to Thailand, and I spent 6 weeks there. And much of the culture you would see the lotus represented. And at that time, I was really struggling with some things that had happened in my life, and the story of and the symbolism of the lotus, like coming from the mud and blooming, and then also the journey to enlightenment. Like there were these little things that just kind of caught my attention and made me take notice. And then again, later I was traveling in Egypt, and I heard a very similar story about the lotus, and just that imagery of moving from dark to light and kind of rebirth really was something that I resonated with, and then kind of started to bring into the context of travel, and how when we travel, we learn about these parts of ourselves, and we move from one version of ourselves in how we know ourselves to another version. And that's kind of where the lotus came into my business.
I like that. I think within your journeys, you're giving great examples of just how meaningful, impactful, transformative travel can really be on us, especially with you saying that, you're traveling during times when, you had a lot going on in your life. And we all turn to travel for such personal and emotional reasons. I know for myself, one of my very first trips was traveling because I had really bad bouts of depression and anxiety, and I just didn't know, who I wanted to be and what I wanted out of life. But that's something I hear quite often from those I talk to in the Travel Coach Network and on the podcast. And what does it, obviously we hear transformative travel being a popular term in the industry as we started primarily during the pandemic, and as we come out of it, we hear a lot more of transformative, meaningful, purposeful travel, intentional travel. What do those words mean to you, or what does transformative travel mean to you in your business?
Yeah. Well, I think, again, kind of coming back to those reflections on my earlier travel experiences, I noticed how differently I engage in the world after traveling. And for me, that felt transformative. So I kind of started using that word early on to try to express what I wanted travelers to get from travel and have it be transformational. But now I think the word is so broad and can mean so many things. And for me, what I really hope for my travelers in terms of transformation is to transform how they know and understand themselves and their place in the world. And so transformation for me doesn't necessarily mean complete change. It just is a change in the conversation we have with ourselves and with others.
Yeah, you explained that so well there, because transformation means something so, personal, just like travel is so personal to everyone too. And um, so these are the types of concepts that you talk about during your sojourns, and hopefully the experiences that your travelers get out of your experiences. What are sojourns? Can you explain that, or where that word came from as well?
Yeah. So again, just an idea that I heard at one point, someone talking about a sojourn being something that was like traveling as if you live somewhere for an extended period of time, or to sojourn means to live somewhere as a temporary visitor. And so was this idea of really wanting to deeply connect with the destination and also show it the reverence and respect that you would if it were your home. And so that's why I wanted to use the term sojourn, to just really begin to paint a sense of what I think travel can look and feel like, and how it can have more rich meaning if we travel with that intention.
What kind of experiences, what kind of sojourns do you provide, and why were those the type of experiences that you wanted to help other women achieve?
Um, I tend to focus my sojourns on connecting with other women in the destinations that we travel to. I did that in part because as I reflected on my past travel experiences, those intimate, kind of really personal connections I had with other women were the things that really stuck with me. Like seeing really beautiful ruins or sites or cities or museums was amazing. But at the end of the day, it was those deep personal connections that I felt really allowed me to have a greater sense of who I was. And so I set out to create those kinds of connections. And I typically partner with women's social impact projects where I'm traveling, because I also want to look at the ways travel can create a positive impact, and just create containers for connection and exploring like our similarities and our differences, and just having space for real connection. And in Guatemala, for instance, what we do is we have different circles with the artisans that we meet with, and we draw like our why and our dream, and we share those as a way of connection, but also as personal exploration. And it's really cool to see the commonalities in some of our shared hopes and dreams between the groups of women.
I love that. That really is such a I don't know the word for it, a really meaningful experience to have. And it reminds me of the times just traveling and just meeting and connecting with people, whether they were other travelers or they were the locals, and just sitting to have conversations and, being touched by these stories. And it really does give you a perspective, and that is part of the changing, the transformation of what travel can do. And it really, what you talk about in Lotus Sojourns and what you do is really really embodies what the future of travel looks like, as travelers are looking to have experiences that give back, that make them feel something deeper than what a typical trip could do, or really using travel, like I always say, as a tool for us to thrive in whether it's our well-being, our mindset, our relationships, our personal, or even our work lives as well. So, and that's why I wanted to have you as a guest on here, to give an example to those listening who are travel coaches, or travel professionals of any sort, to really take a look at examples like Christine, because she really is doing what tourism looks like moving forward. And especially for travelers too who are listening, that there are experiences out there that have more of an impact and can really make an impact on you. And is that what you were talking about? I noticed on your website you talk about social impact journeys. And what is that? Is that more about regenerative tourism, or giving back, or making an imprint in the communities where you visit?
Yeah, I think just having the conversation and really understanding the impact that you have when you do travel, and knowing that that's really every single point of connection with a destination, you have a choice to make a positive or negative impact. And that can be as simple as bringing your own water bottle and not purchasing water bottles when you travel, or booking local hotels. For instance, I'm heading to Switzerland soon, and one of my first Google searches are there any women-owned or social impact hotels I can stay at in the destination? And there were, and just kind of asking those kinds of questions to see what greater impact you can make when you travel. And then, like I said, I also really tend to partner with a local organization so that we can learn more about one another and provide financial support by visiting with and engaging with that community as well.
Are there any platforms that you like to use when planning and booking your trips, to see if there's hotels that are or who's doing something in the industry that's making a positive impact?
Yeah, one of the places I usually start is Kind Hotels. They have
Mhm.
usually different hotels that are serving communities in different ways, and then each stay gives back. So that's a really easy place for me to start. But like I said, also just keyword searches is helpful. There are a lot more platforms that are starting to arise. Yugen Earthside has some. There's quite a few if you just look for, I think, sustainable booking, travel booking platforms more and more all of the time, which is really amazing to see because it used to be really hard to try to make those choices, which is why I think even if people were really passionate about it, they may not have been doing that when they traveled.
Yeah, exactly. We're seeing and hearing so many other hotels and properties and destinations, getting creative and thinking outside the box on how they can make a positive impact on the community or allow travelers to give back in some way because it's not a trend that we're seeing for travelers. It's just a fact. It's what people are looking to do, right? Whether it's on the planet, on animals, on nature, on people, and more. I know we talked about you incorporating coaching methods into your travelers and their experiences. What does that look like? And can you give an example of anything?
Yeah, I think for me, the coaching is again just kind of creating awareness around our travel experience. And it starts as soon as people start to look at booking with me. And we have a pre-trip conversation. I'd like to talk with each of my guests before they travel to make sure this experience is in alignment with what they really want. And so the first question is really, what do you want out of this travel experience? Which seems a little bit crazy to start with something that basic, but a lot of times people are just thinking, I want to travel, I want to go somewhere, this place looks great, I'll go. And they haven't even asked any questions about why they're seeking travel. Are they looking for disconnection, reconnection, learning about themselves, learning about culture? And as soon as you just start like taking like the lid off Pandora's box, like people really then start to see what you're after, and then they see that in themselves, and they have an aha moment, it seems pretty quickly, about I didn't realize that I was really seeking this or yearning this or looking for this, and now that I know, I can really intentionally choose an activity that's going to give me such a greater benefit. And even if that experience is not with me, if my trip's not in alignment for them, like I'm so happy to direct them to someone else I know, or to encourage them to find something that's really going to offer them the experience that they're craving, because that's when I think travel has the most personal impact and is the most rewarding.
Yeah, that's, what we talk about with intentional travel. And it's something I love talking about too, is just setting those intentions for the trip so that you can make better decisions, where to go, what to do, who to go with, what kind of experiences or activities to do. Really being mindful of your trip and therefore, hopefully having the feelings, the outcomes, the changes in your life that you are, that's driving you in the first place to travel, right? That's amazing. Where do you see the future of travel coaching going?
Well, I hope it's like endless opportunity. I think that the power that it has to make travel so much more beneficial is just endless. And I think that I hope that people don't want to travel without being coached. Like it's so amazing to think about how much it can create a shift in what you're going to experience. And, like I said, it could be a very simple conversation you have with a coach at the beginning of your trip, or maybe even some guided journaling they give you during your trip and then reflection afterward. It doesn't have to be elaborate, but also it has the ability to become a really powerful tool, and people can have so much more added to it. They could work with someone for a long period of time. For example, I'm looking at building a few trips based on a model I used before, with 3 months of coaching before we traveled. And the I guess return on that experience was so impactful for the women that did that. At the end of the day, they didn't even know that a weekend trip or a weekend retreat could be so powerful, but it was that 3 months that they invested in themselves leading up to it that amplified what they got out of that experience. So I feel like travel coaching really should be available for everyone who's looking for a more rich and meaningful personal travel experience.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I definitely agree with you, but it really does allow travel to do its wonders.
Mhm.
And instead of, you know, so many times we hear people say, well, I need a vacation from that vacation, or especially those in the workplace who are taking a vacation and now they are anxious when they get back because they just can't wait until their next trip, which will be who knows when. So if we really set intentions and are mindful about our time traveling, travel can be a really powerful means to, thriving in our lives. And then is that what you tell us about your immersion programs? We hear often about immersive experiences now more than ever before too. What do those look like, or what do those entail?
So as I mentioned, the 3 month coaching that I did was kind of a mental, physical, spiritual. And so we did some physical preparation for the more adventurous components. We did meditation, journaling, yoga, and then we did some community building experiences. But then we also brought in experts from the region that we were traveling to learn about the indigenous culture, the environment that we're going to be engaging with, the kind of gear and stuff that we might need for that experience. So we really became fully immersed in the experience before we went. But then I think that also allowed for the travelers to like settle in more quickly. So when you're talking about kind of getting more immersed in an experience, when you have that level of comfort upon arrival, you don't have to wait to adjust. You can just kind of sink in and start really being a part of the experience that you were after.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see more of where, the concept of immersive travel experiences are heading as well. I know you're always busy and you have a lot of really exciting things happening in your business. Everything from your communities, which is quite clever, and your community itself. You want to share just some exciting things you've been working on or anything in store?
Well, yeah, I have my book sojourn, which is something that I launched during the pandemic as a way for people to continue to travel and combine personal exploration with learning about the world, and picked books that I really had wanted to read, but I wanted to read in community, and realized that like as I looked at them all stacked on my desk, that they looked like a journey. And they are, women who've written about their own personal growth or their adventure travel experiences, or learning about a culture through one of the authors. And so that's been a really fun way to kind of play with traveling without traveling, which then also kind of expands the possibilities for how we can travel and how we can learn, and how we can be guided through these experiences. So that was a fun place for me to play in for the last 2 years. And we're just getting ready to start the next, like the fall chunk of our book sojourn. So I'm so excited for the people that are joining that. And it's been just a special place to be able to be over the past 2 years.
That sounds so exciting. That's really clever and creative. I like that. And I always like to ask my guests, is there a fun fact about yourself that you'd like to share with the listeners? Doesn't have to be travel or business related.
Yeah, it kind of is and kind of isn't travel related, but I have 3 daughters and they were each born in a different state. So it just kind of shows you that I'm constantly living in the state of travel, and that, like, I don't know, it's like they all have their own little being because they've been born in a different state. And so it's kind of a
Oh,
fun thing.
cute. I like that a lot. They're destined to be little travelers themselves, I guess,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Um, and to share with our audience as we close up here, where can they learn more about Lotus Sojourns or follow you?
Yeah, Lotus Sojourns, they can find at www.lotussojourns.com, and the podcast is there also, just at Soul of Travel. And then on social media, I'm either at Lotus Sojourns or at Soul of Travel Podcast on Instagram and Facebook.
Wonderful. Christine, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. You really have built something incredible. And I know there's the future of Lotus Sojourns is just so much brighter and so much more to come. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I really appreciate being here with you today.
Yeah, thank you. And be sure, for anyone interested in following the Travel Coach Network, you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at the Travel Coach Network, or visit us at thetravelcoachnetwork.com. The links for that, as well as all of Christine's links, are also going to be in the show notes. There you'll also find a link for the Travel Coach Network global community, as well as your free beginner's guide to travel coaching. If you know anyone interested in travel coaching or listening, please send them our way to our podcast. We'd really, truly appreciate it. And until next time, my fellow wanderers, bye for now.